This is the 8-9 Combo. I'm Brett McKay. This is Harry Jones, and this is the Weekend Post-Mortem. Hello, mate. How are you doing?
How's it, Brett? They were doing a post-mortem on me over this weekend, but I survived from upchuckery and other buffoonery in my gut.
You've not been well, have you?
I've had a bad lobster. It was two separate things. They just coincided. But as I've said often to people, everyone who loves me, my loved ones, love this. They love me being sick. They can finally get me sit down in the blanket over me in a chair. And so what I did to survive.
Stay there and don't go anywhere for 3 days.
Inform you and all our merry 25,000 viewers and listeners is I watched Gene Hackman films, paying homage to the man who died from whatever reason. Doesn't really matter at this point. 95, great innings. I watched Gene Hackman films. I watched him be a good, bad cop in The French Connection, careening around the streets of New York, finding this French connection of drugs, shutting it down. The good, bad coach of Hoosier's fundamentals, 4 passes before you shoot. The bad sheriff in Unforgiven. I don't deserve this. I'm building a house. This is not how I'm supposed to die. And then the bad, good captain of Crimson Tide. You will obey my orders, Denzel. And then the bad, good spook in The Conversation, which is a very eerie movie where he records something that ends up being a murder. And so that's helped me get through this post-mortem. I'm ready to take on anything you've got to offer, and I will place it in the frame of Hackman's ship.
Oh, I look forward to that. I'm very happy to hear that you are not dead. That definitely makes podcasting easier as a pair. You touched on it. We have had an absolutely phenomenal response to our chat with Niles Brodie, the head of the Twickenham Experience at Allianz Stadium in London. And the numbers blow us away. We have had more than 25,000 views on YouTube. We've picked up more than 600 subscribers in the last 4 days or whatever it's been. It's making our heads spin a bit. It's a little bit daunting now to create another video that has to try and follow that. But here we are with another non-test match edition of the Weekend Post-Mortem.
The good news is you stopped wanking and you pushed the button subscribing. Maybe it was you stopped wanking and started eating.
Yes.
Rugby food pods are a wonderful collaboration. It's a great intersect.
Yes.
Come on, let's be honest. We always eat when we go to rugby. It's one of the only sports where you always eat.
It's true. It's very true. And on that topic, if you are listening to the 8-9 Combo via Spotify, Apple Pods, or any of the podcast platforms, then just very quickly hit your subscribe button, your follow button right now. And if you're watching on YouTube, just hit that little red button down there in that corner as well. And then you won't miss an episode, and the numbers keep us climbing, and it keeps us having great rugby chats each week. And we really,
who probably did that? A guy who rode a bike by you this weekend and said, "Hi, Brett, I'm listening to you right now." Who was that guy?
That guy was Sam Windsor's brother. And then hello to Richard, who I saw on my walk across the weekend. It was very, very funny. It's a non-test match weekend. It's a non-test edition of the Weekend Post-Mortem with the Six Nations to resume next weekend. So for now, mate, it's sort of full review mode for everything that we've seen this weekend, and where in the Weekend Post-Mortem model, we'll pull out the big results from the games that grabbed us over the weekend and from all around the rugby world, which I'm actually looking forward to getting into.
I think it's fun. One thing this is a cautionary tale. I know we're supposed to be Mr. Positive about rugby and always pushing it up. And we're going to cover all the Super Rugby Pacific games, I think, because they were all exciting.
Oh, great.
My problem with all this excitement is I'm worried about one thing, because I want Australia to beat the British and Irish Lions. And I worry about what I see at Leinster in their shutdown defense, Glasgow in their ability to cramp down on you in big games, and the Saints and their ability to outmatch whatever scoring with lots of speed. Is this idea that a lot of Aussies are telling me and even excoriating me on Twitter saying, "Oh yeah, but it's just speedier here, that's quicker." I don't believe that the test matches between the Lions and the Wallabies are going to be 42 to 45 every time. there's going to
No,
be one of those matches,
it's not,
and it might be the one that matters the most, is when you don't get line breaks.
No, it's not going to be 6 tries plays 5.
Playing rugby when you're congratulated all the time by winning you had 7 line breaks, they had 6. But what if the line breaks dry up? What if either side is struggling to get maybe 2?
Yep.
How do you score then? How do you manufacture movement? How do you create quick ball when Josh van der Fleer and Kalen Doris are latched on to your line's knee without the ref seeing it?
How do you make line breaks when outside rush / blitz defense is actually significantly more connected than anything in Super Rugby? And that's a valid question.
And the tail of the tape is the average score, which we're going to get into how fun it is. Average score for over 3 rounds of 15 matches. The average score for either team, for both teams, 32.3. The average score line is 37.5 against 28, which is fun.
Yeah.
And the average aggregate, 65 points are being scored every match. And I thought, well, maybe there's a lot of anomalies and outliers. There was only one game in which one team scored less than 20 points. This is wild.
So let's get into the long list of results. The 5-word headline is on hold, and we're back next weekend when we do get back into Six Nations mode. So Super Rugby Pacific round 3, and it was, as you say, mate, a wild weekend of results. There was last-minute thrillers. There was losing bonus points everywhere. There was blowouts that were a little bit unfair on the team, on the team losing, and there was some really unlucky teams who probably didn't deserve to lose and unfortunately did. And I think, mate, that probably starts with the first game of the weekend, which was the Highlanders holding out a plucky Moana Pacifica for 31-29 up there in North Harbour in Auckland. I mean, first and foremost, can I just pay homage to those Moana jerseys, which were a throwback to the Pacific Island composite teams of the early 2000s, the red, the white, the blue of Tonga, Fiji, Samoa. They looked absolutely magnificent. And Artie Savia in the picture that we're showing right now on the video for our podcast listeners wore it very well and played it very well. But they didn't really deserve to lose that, Moana, again. And I think we've said that about them for 3 weeks in a row now.
Captivating togs, you're right. Right. There's an old saying in rugby, though, that you get exactly what you deserve over the course of a season. So in the individual parts of a game, or even these moments, like I feel unlucky, there's something that you have to learn, which I think is what the Waratahs are trying to do this season versus last season, is when it comes down to something, can I win ugly? And I don't know. Winning ugly is the best thing in life. Winning a game you shouldn't win is the best.
Les Kiss after Queensland beat the Force in Perth, and we'll get into it, he said, I understand the whole concept of winning ugly, but sometimes winning ugly is actually winning beautifully. and I get that. Moana in the last 3 weeks have scored 44 points, 36 points, and 29 points on the weekend, and they've lost 3 times. This time last year, they would have won those 3 games by 10 points every time. So that speaks to where Super Rugby is this year.
Unless they're willing to go to 55 points to start winning matches, they got to start to think about subtracting the other team's points.
Yes, the issue is that teams that they're conceding 45 points, and they're conceding 38 points, and they're conceding 31 points. Yes, that's
so my Gene Hackman film to compare this match to was
Please do.
The Royal Tenenbaums. Later in his career, Gene Hackman turned to comedy and he said, comedy is unforgiving because either the audience laughs or it doesn't. And you know that when you're in the test and you actually get your film released and you go, no one is giggling, no one is chuckling, I failed. He said, drama has a little more leeway. So I'm going to suggest that to Moana Pacifica, is you've got to get ruthless with your self-standards and your self-assessments. Either it's working or it's not. Listen to Gene Hackman.
Yeah, no, it makes a fair point. It makes a fair point. And you can probably start applying that, I think, to the Fijian in Drua as well, who launched an almighty comeback to get in front of New South Wales and Sydney on Friday night, only for a penalty try late in the piece to get the Waratahs home 29-24. And again, that was a game Dan McKellar said post-match that, it's not looking great. Like, it doesn't look the best, but we're getting the job done, and that's the most pleasing part. Is they're rolling up the sleeves, to use that cliche. They're getting the job done. They're doing whatever they need to do in order to get the 4 points each week. And here they are, 3 weeks in, yet to lose a game. So they're doing a lot of things wrong. They acknowledge that, but they're winning games. And 12 months ago, that was not the case of the Waratahs.
In the gritty 1971 film, The French Connection, which won Gene Hackman his first Oscar, there's a morally ambiguous cop, Popeye. Love the guy. Reminds me of me, actually. Cutting corners, not too sure about what's right and wrong, but, just scouring the city for these drugs and these French guys and sowing mayhem on the way, hardly ever sleeping, all over the place, doing terrible things to get the job done. And my lesson from The French Connection for the Waratahs is nothing worked until it did. And that maul was really creaky old match. And then it wins you the match.
And then they got it done in the last 5 minutes.
Sometimes that's the way rugby is. And, also, what do you think about the strip of the Drua? Did you like that?
I did.
Green and white number?
Yep. Loved it. That picture that we're showing in the video doesn't quite do it justice, but I really, really like it.
It's a bit of a Miami vibe, bit of a
because there's so much blue in Super Rugby. When something is coral green like that, it stands out. No, I loved it. I think it looks absolutely fantastic.
So the Waratahs are not as bad as they were a year ago, but they're very questionable, and maybe that makes for even better TV. I saw a lot of people at the stands enjoying themselves.
There was 16,000 for the first game. I didn't hear a crowd figure for their game on Friday night.
Just eyeball test.
It feels like there was more, and if that's the case, then great. And
do you think that's because of Drua as well? Is Drua pulling?
Yep. No doubt.
Another sector in the Sydney side.
Yeah. And they're doing that wherever they play, because there was big Fijian contingent in Wellington last weekend. There will be, big Fijian contingent in Canberra in 2 weeks' time when they arrive here to play the Brumbies. So that's definitely a draw. There's no question about that. On the topic of the Brumbies, the Chiefs were ruthless in the end, making a fairly errant ACT Brumbies side pay. It was, in the end, 49-34. I said before that, a game blew out where probably didn't deserve to. The Brumbies were not a 15-point worse team on this day. I think that needs to be said. And it's only a 15. It was horrendous. That's what it was. It was horrendous. It was a bad pass behind the intended target into a vacant in-goal area for, who was it, Quinta Pye to score one of the easiest tries of his life.
In the context, though, didn't the Brumbies have to do, that's the thing about coming from behind all the time in these high-scoring matches. You end up doing things you wouldn't do in a tight test.
Yes. And unfortunately, they've been doing a few things that they wouldn't normally do. So that's something they've got to rectify, because they've got the Blues this week, and the Blues were very, very good.
Who did you anger in the Super Rugby computer programming scheduling thing? You are going on a murderer's row here.
Well, the Blues and the Brumbies have both got hard draws for the first 6 or 8 rounds. The Brumbies only played in Canberra 3 times in the first 10 rounds or something. So it's and the Blues have basically got all of last year's top 8 up front. So
on your unflattering loss, which I think was true, I think it was more like a 7. It was, just a 1-score game, really, and it was a match for match. It made me think of one of the great movies, Unforgiven, where Clint Eastwood's Clint Eastwood's trying to teach a young gunslinger about death, and he says it's a hell of a thing to kill a man, take away everything he has and everything he's gonna have and ever will be. And then he's leaving town. Morgan Freeman's been cruelly tortured by bad Gene Hackman, Little Bill, and Clint Eastwood just glints into the rain and people trying to shoot at him, but they're scared too. And he goes, "If you don't put him in the ground proper, I'm gonna come back here and kill all you sons of bitches."
I know you're trying to be pointing at him.
I think that's what the Chiefs are like.
I really cannot take this seriously at the moment.
I think that's what the Chiefs are like right now. They are like mean. They're like been risen from some kind of death march. They've been to the finals 3 times in 4 years. They've fallen. I think they were a little bit embarrassed against the Blue. They're taking it out on everyone, and they don't seem to care. They don't give a fuck anymore. They're just gonna drive it in.
It's like they heard us all talking in pre-season. They heard us all saying, Chiefs don't look too much different from last year. And they go, we'll show you.
Why? So our good friend Jeff Parks, who's a part of the show, he said it's a good career move for Clayton McMillan to jump to Munster. And I get it. I understand what he's saying without even really going through it. He didn't elucidate. But why is it? Let's just talk that through. Why? It seems like he's poised maybe for a dynasty.
Yeah, there would be that, but I think so much about success in coaching is about timing, and he would feel like trajectory is on the up. And
is it like when you get the driver, like you're just borrowing a driver and you smack it 350 down the middle?
I don't know.
That's the time to sell it to the guy using it. Like, I'll sell it to you for 200.
Yeah. I don't know. That doesn't happen to me very often.
You're short guy. You're the master of the flop wedge and all that.
No, I'm not. I'm not definitely not the master of the flop wedge.
All cricketers are good.
I think if where Clayton McMillan wants to get to ultimately is the All Blacks job, and every New Zealand coach worth their salt does. Right. What he's trying to work out is, does a winning Chiefs destiny get him to the All Blacks? Is that a straight line there, or does he actually need to go elsewhere and prove that he can do it without New Zealand players?
Why? Is that because he needs to show a different shape of rugby, learn different things, get in the Champions Cup?
Yeah, I don't know. It seems to be the way that they do it in New Zealand, and the one that's bucking the trend about that is Scott Robertson.
Yes,
and there's an argument.
They made him wait.
They did make him wait.
Term longer than he thought.
Yes, they made him wait, and then there's an argument as well. Is he actually proving that you don't need to go overseas? Ooh. The
provocative.
Well, no, and I don't actually say it provocatively. I think there is still an element of jury out.
News today. Hendrik Cronje breaks it from report. 4 test matches next year between New Zealand and Springboks, 3 in South Africa and 1 in the US.
Jesus,
it's on. Yeah. Sorry, I digress.
We're gonna have teams playing. We're gonna have teams playing 20 tests a year now. Before too long. Anyway, the Blues were absolutely phenomenal. Patrick Tuipulotu pictured there was just at his barnstorming best against the Hurricanes. 33-29, they beat them in Wellington. I think we all knew that the Blues were going to hit their stride at some point. Hurricanes fans were hoping it wasn't this weekend coming, but it was, and the Blues now look like it's just situation normal, back to normal programming. Just forget about those last 2 weeks if you don't mind, and let's get on with the job now.
Listen, you and I have 2 of the nicest friends in the whole world. One of them is a profound and tragic Blues supporter. The other one is an unbelievably rabid Canes supporter. So these matches are really tough for us because it's like we're in a WhatsApp group with these 2 guys, Digger and Trev, and it's really harsh when one of them loses. But the Canes let this slip. I mean, I did. Captain Tuipulotu, good on you. And that's why this is the Poseidon Adventure, by the way, for Gene Hackman reference. But they let it slip, even with a carded Sotutu, choices of lineouts to scrum, crucial. Letting Talea scamper and Sotutu flop over. Those 2 soft tries, I thought, ooh, that's not good watching on Monday.
No. And timing of all those things as well. Like the Canes themselves had 2 players off to yellow cards, 2 props off to yellow cards within 3 minutes of each other in the first half. So that set them back. But then when the Blues hit card trouble, it was at opposite ends of the field. At opposite ends of the game. One was first half, one was late in the second half.
That final stanza, you think, Canes got this now.
They get the news, the card's going to be upgraded to red. It's a 20-minute red card. That came in the 77th minute. It was sort of like, what's the point of this now then? Like we get no benefit from this. So that was a tough one. And it's a tough one for the Hurricanes. And they now have to play Moana, who have been buoyed, who will have confidence. And I actually think there's a bit of pressure on the Hurricanes this weekend.
No, I agree.
I think
built pressure for themselves.
Then
on the contrast, Blues really needed that. I love the Blues social media director.
Blues have released the pressure valve.
Just he's hilarious.
They're
he
back.
went so
the Blues
quickly
are
to the
back,
other way. Yeah,
baby. Yep. Queensland broke Western Force Hearts in Perth with an 80th minute winner, 28-24. They didn't see a lot of ball in that last 10 minutes, but again, back their maul, back their pick and drive. Filippo Dangunu picks up at the back, dives over, and look at the grin on his face in that photo right now. He's pretty happy with himself right there. And
good on you, young man.
Queensland suddenly, there's only 3 unbeaten teams now, and Queensland are one of them. So again, I actually don't think they're playing. I think they're a good way off their best as well at the moment, Queensland, but they are looking good.
Yeah, sorry, Rugby Reg, but the Reds have not been that impressive so far. This game reminds me.
To be fair, he's saying exactly the same thing. So
he just likes to poke me a lot about Tane Edbed, so I poke him back.
Right.
This game reminds me of the Crimson Tide, back when the U.S. was an enemy of Russia instead of a best friend. There was this gripping Cold War drama piece set in a nuclear sub, almost like a play, because it's one scene you're just trapped in a nuclear sub. And I just felt like in the end, there was just battles all over the field, and the Force are actually, in their loss, and maybe throughout this whole season, this young season so far, have shown me a lot. They got some real battlers. They're just like, I will relieve you of duty. No, I will relieve you of duty. Denzel telling Gene, you're fired. And Tizano, Paul Cully, our buddy Paul Cully, was saying, what about the return of Pooper?
Yeah.
With maybe the end of matches, not the beginning, but at the final 20 minutes against the Lions, what if you have McWright and Tizano?
And Tizano on, it's an interesting thought. And he made some really good points in that article. Yeah, small ball. It could have a place.
Hey, put Lukey Reimer on there, but have 3, and then it's like try Pooper. No?
Luke Reimer would get pilfers from Carlo Tizano, who got a pilfer from the ruck.
Ooh,
Luke Reimer would appear and pilfer and claim the stat.
All 3 guys, McTizza Reimer, McTizzy Luker, they all put their hands on the ball, and then what's it?
That's one of the madness.
And then the English ref blows. No, it wouldn't be. It'd be a French ref, I guess, that does the Lions. A French ref blows.
Could be Kiwi.
And you think it's going to be
O'Keefe.
Oh my!
Could be Ben O'Keefe.
Conspiracy theories abound, and they all put them, and he goes, he blows a whistle, and then Luke and Carlo and Fraser all say, who got it, and make him declare, I want the jackal.
Who got the stat? We might take a closer look at tables in games of the week later in the week, but I just want to mention this. Right? Oh, it's round 3, but I'll just mention this. The Reds are on 9 points in second. The Crusaders are on 4 points in ninth. That's 1 bonus point win between second and ninth in 11-team competition. It's going to be mad this year. It's going to be mad. Let's get on to the IRC, mate, because there's some funny results there, let me say. Some really funny results there. The top 4 teams, and Leinster are a bit out in front, but second place Glasgow, third place Bulls, fourth place Sharks, all lost this weekend, which was just mad. Edinburgh are now in the top 8 after beating Munster 34-28.
That was a good win.
Tormund Park. It was a really good win. The highlights that I watched, it looked very well earned. Edinburgh.
All my friends from Edinburgh were saying, who is this team? And where have you been hiding?
Where have you been all year? Yeah, I can imagine.
Then my Munster friends are like, ooh, that was the worst in ages. And so they cannot wait for Clayton McMillan to arrive.
Yeah, I bet. The Stormers are back, baby. They reigned in the rain at Loftus, beating the Bulls 19-16. You've been surprisingly quiet about this result, I must say.
Oh, yeah, not at all. I've been actually probably annoyingly loud, but I do think it's a very interesting story. So let me tell you a story.
Okay, this will be good.
The way that rugby lays out is so interestingly intricate, in just like a chessboard, because all the pieces can move different levels, and it's just not so easy to overwhelm someone with one thing. Even though the queen can move all these directions, the queen will just wipe you away. So on the face of it, the Bulls had all the ascendancy, but they had three problems. One, they were out without Elriclo, Marcel Coetzee, and Cameron Honeycomb. There are three primary ball-busting carriers
Yep.
in an extremely monsoonish day, because they're playing rugby in summer now. And so you have the thunderstorms of the Highveld to deal with. So literally, it was knee-deep. I posted some pictures of people before the game having merry times with the security guards, and it was great fun, skidding around literally up to your knees on the edges of the field. So they start the game having dredged and swept as much as they can, but you missing your big ball carriers in a rainy day. And then Kubas Visa, who's their best approximate, goes out with an injury. Kanan Moody, who's your sky guy, goes out. So aerials, heavy carrying, and these three misses. They win the scrums. They get 6 penalties. And I've always used this kind of thing of 5. If you have 5 scrum penalties, you have 5 kick retained. If you have 5 line breaks, these are, the rule of 5. Who do you want? Which do you want? Usually 6 scrum penalties, is very rare against the Stormers, is dominating. However, the Stormers regained 9 kicks and the Bulls regained 1. A 9-1 kick regain. Give me that 8 edge on kick regain, because I'm doing it way beyond in a rainy day. That's how the Stormers score their try. And the other stat that's interesting is busted tackles. Ivan Ruas was imperious along with Ben Jason Dixon, his buddy. They were just smashing Bulls 13 times, knocking people out of the picture. 66 tackles total, 13 times just erasing people in their path. And so those 2 big stats overwhelm the 6 scrums. And Yuri Matia has a wonderful game-controlling match at 10. It took playing the Bulls to make the Stormers stop being goof troop and play proper rugby. And that's a lot of what happens. So now Dobbo, 8-2 over Jake White, and just always annoying the Bulls. The Bulls really should be better. Vlilaroo had a terrible match at 10. He's not a 10. He thinks he's a 10. He wants to go back in time to be a 10. But he had one of those days where if you haven't been playing 10 in a long time, you think you have more time than you do, got yellow carded, and there it was, 1960. Wonderful match in terms of physicality, but brutal for a guy like Rassi and Rasmus to watch, because he's just seeing guys like Kanan Moody fly out.
And doesn't that do, you mentioned John Dobson, the coach, and he's been under a fair bit of pressure. That must just be relieving a huge amount now. Like, we beat the Bulls at Loftus.
Really helps him because it looks like a coaching win. In the end, there was adjustments there. You had both. So we're missing Damien Willems, Sasha Feinberg, and Mani Lubbock. So 3 guys, but they're all kind of in the same mode. As long as Yuri Matia and Warwick Galant, who passed the ball to himself one time by mistake. Galant is so funny because he just does all wrong things and it works out sometimes. But
Warwick Galant famously got a ball kicked up his ass in Super Rugby, didn't he? Yes.
He's the most entertaining, like, lowlights ever player, I think that really helps Dobbo. The other derby that was going on, by the way, let's jump there for our friend Ringo. The Lions looked angelic. They were just running circles around the Sharks.
So they've now jumped to 9th after thumping the Sharks 38-14.
It's like Super Rugby. And derbies are different.
A shout out to our Twitter friend who said, just take it easy on the Sharks, all right, this weekend, please.
All form guides go out the book when
in derbies. Yes, derbies. They do. Yep. They do. The other one I wanted to mention this weekend, out of the Irk, Ospreys, an 81st minute penalty goal for fullback Jack Walsh delivers Ospreys a 32-31 bonus point win over Glasgow. It's their first win at the Scotstoun since 2016.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I'm really surprised. I just didn't catch that one.
Yeah. No, Ospreys are 11. So again, the table talk. The Sharks are 4th on 34 points. Benetton are 13 on 28. But you can go in a little bit further here. Cardiff are 6th on 31, down to Benetton 13th. Ulster even 14th on 27. That's one win, covering 6th to 14th. Wow. That's mad as well. That's mad.
We've got a nice sail on the Stormers. We always had to get beyond this match, and we just got lucky.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, fair. In the top 14, La Rochelle are now 10th after 22-17 loss to
La Rochelle is just
Stade
closing up
Francais.
shop.
Will Skelton cops a red card in that. Lyon upset third place Toulon 27-20.
Lyon's a good team.
The
thing about top 14 right now is when you do home and away and you factor in the people that are held aside for national duty, it's really tough to draw many conclusions about some of these. But Lyon is not a bad team.
Lyon is climbing a little bit. I mentioned in Games of the Week last week that I was interested in keeping an eye on the Montpellier Cast game. Montpellier have won it 21-17 in the end. So that's 8th beating 5th. And it now means that Montpellier they're only 2 points behind Lyon, who are 6th.
Mm-hmm.
So, things, again, how much of it is mid-year, Six Nations period shenanigans, we'll find out in time, but there's a lot of movement in that mid-tier table as well. So
if you ever want to go see a rugby match and have a really great day all day, go to Montpellier. Unbelievable. Beautiful stadium, beautiful place around it. Easy. Everyone in the whole town is obsessed with rugby. There's only a few places in the world where you go and everyone is obsessed. There's not football. There's nothing. There's no competitive sport. It's just rugby.
It's just rugby. Yeah, right. Yeah, sounds like a good town. It's week 11 in Japan. The League One scores largely went to type there. And again, apologies for my Japanese there. But scores largely went to type there. The Toyota for Blitz are now 10th after they beat Urayasu D-Rocks. That's 36-31. That was the first game of the weekend there. So that just sort of eases a little bit of pressure around them in the relegation zone. So that's week 11.
Who's your favorite team in Japan?
Oh, I don't really have one. I sort of keep an eye on a few different. Like I actually, because I don't see any of the Japanese rugby now. We used to be able to see it on Stan in Australia, but you can't now. You can
like when you go into the results, do you jump to one? Like do you kind of see what the Wild Knights did or whatever?
Yeah, I do. I probably go to Wild Knights first, but I'm always intrigued in where the Blitz are up to and where the Dynabors are up to, because we've spoken to Matt To'omua a few times.
Yeah. The personal connections. Yeah,
but I'm also intrigued at Suntory's. Just like they're 8th, I think now. Like they're struggling. They're really struggling this year. So
did you see someone posted the potential Anzac 15?
Yes, and I did see, and it's a Japanese origin account, and it's a good team. I will say that it was a good team, but it was far too New Zealand heavy. It just won't be. It just won't be. It was a good team, but it was a completely unrealistic team for what that will be, and that's perhaps another chat for another day. It's round 3 of Major League Rugby, and the big one out of that, I think, mate, is the goddamn Houston Sabercats get up. Seattle
final minutes.
Wolves, Seahawks. I call them Seahawks, but they're Sea Wolves, aren't they?
Yeah.
Seattle
Everything has to have a C in Seattle.
C from sea to shining sea. 2 late red cards either side of the match-winning try for the goddamn Houston Sabercats.
Good win, tough win.
Is what brings them on there. Yeah. So yeah, it was an interesting old weekend, I think, in Major League Rugby. Is there anything else that we need to cover off this weekend? Going through scores actually takes time, doesn't it?
I can't think of anything else.
No, I think
Stormers beat the Bulls. I don't know if we made that clear.
No, I don't know. You haven't mentioned that before. I'm surprised.
We love you, Johan. Johan called it. Johan, our good friend Johan was talking to me incessantly the day before, going, I don't feel good about this.
He said to me on the socials, he was nervous. Yes.
He said a year ago, he said, when we get rid of Chris Smith, because we don't think he's good enough, we're going to rue the day, because Buta's not up to it, because Johan Goossens kind of past his prime. Now we got Willie LaRue playing 10. I don't know any team that's back to this trend of winning consistently top of a league without a very good 10. I'm not aware of that.
No, that's a good point.
Hi, Harry Plummer.
Fair.
The forgotten
That then is
man.
another edition of the Weekend Post-Mortem behind us. Tell us what you think right here on the 8-9 Combo YouTube channel, or you can leave a comment if you're listening on Spotify as well, or obviously hit us up by finding and following the 8-9 Combo on Twitter, on Blue Sky, and on YouTube as well. And please do share us far and wide. Leave us a rating and review as much as you can as well. And we will be thankful for them. Harry and I remain in our usual places on the socials as well, at Harry Baldy Jones and at BMC Sport. This is the 8-9 Combo, the short side set piece combination you didn't realise you needed in a rugby podcast. I'm Brett McKay, he's Harry Jones, and we will be back in your ears in a few days for another great rugby chat with former Ireland and Leinster hooker, now wonderful commentator and friend of the 8-9, Bernard Jackman, joining us to preview Ireland, France in the Six Nations. That is going to be great.
Top 3 previewer in the whole rugby world. Rest in peace, Gene Hackman. If you had grown up in Australia or South Africa, you'd been number 8, I think. Come play with us.
Oh, get on with it. This is where we talk over the logos for our YouTube friends.
Oh, hello, YouTubers.
It's just a little something for them.
What do you want? What can we give you? What is the right algorithm?
Yeah, it's a good question.
I'll go.